So here in Canada, we're scheduled to have a big election, right after the big American one. But this time, things are different. The election for the past 3 years has looked like a certain win for the Conservative Party, but not anymore. In this video, I will be explaining the 2025 Canadian election as of April 23rd, 2025, and I'll be mostly comparing it to the big American one, as events there have shaped things, and this new election has become a fight for whether Canada will remain an independent country or not. Now, first, context on why this is happening in the first place. Prime Minister Trudeau was looking increasingly unpopular after several scandals, actions seen as too woke, and repeated military cuts. As well as that, he had been alienating the right-wing voters so much that they basically tried to do a January 6th. Trudeau was also becoming unpopular worldwide, and things were looking bad for the Liberals. But then, something happened. Specifically, a tangerine tyrant by the name of Donald Trump. In January 2025, Trump held a press conference where he basically said, "I'm gonna make imperialism great again." He announced that he would be putting economic or military pressure on Canada and Greenland, hoping to annex them either peacefully or by doing a blitzkrieg. That changed everything. Trudeau decided to stand up for Canadians and fight on. And then he resigned. So that happened. Along with that, he suspended Parliament and called an election in the Liberal Party. But something interesting happened after that. As the Liberals had their election, the threats to Canada's independence made Trudeau's popularity rebound, and it had a rally around the flag effect, sort to say. But the deal was already set in stone. Anyways, in the Liberal Party, two main contenders stood up: Chrystia Freeland and Mark Carney. There were other candidates too, but these were the only ones that actually had any chance of winning. Chrystia was the former Deputy Prime Minister, and had resigned and called for Trudeau's resignation in January. Mark Carney was the former Bank of Canada governor, and even for the Bank of England. He helped Canada weather the 2008 financial crisis well, and was so good that the UK asked him to work for them. He then helped the UK navigate Brexit. He's also from Hay River in the Northwest Territories, making him the first Prime Minister from a territory. He has never worked that closely with the Liberal Party, making him a bit of an outsider, but Chrystia was mostly associated with Trudeau's people. Members of the Liberal Party voted for 4 candidates. Only 2 of them were serious candidates. There were others, but of course no one expected them to win. And the results were not even close. Mark Carney won and became the 24th Prime Minister of Canada. And with that, his first act would end up helping him greatly and damaging the Conservative Party greatly. He removed the carbon tax, a tax on how much carbon you emit, and something the Conservatives campaigned on for over 2 years. Overnight, the Conservative narrative of "Trudeau sucks, remove the carbon tax" was dead in the water. After that, he spent about a week doing Prime Minister stuff, not having to worry about the prorogued Parliament. But eventually, it caught up to him, and he called the election for April 28th, and the race was on. So, let's look at the contenders. First off, Mark Carney. Mark Carney was born in Hay River, Northwest Territories, moving to Edmonton shortly after. He grew an interest in economics and went to Harvard, earning a bachelor's degree. He then went to Oxford for a master's and doctorate. He served in various roles at Goldman Sachs, even overseeing their transfer to America, something that has become very controversial. He served as Deputy Governor at the Bank of Canada and joined the Department of Finance. In 2007, he was renamed Governor of the Bank of Canada. And when the 2008 financial crisis hit, he was faced with, well, a crisis. But under him, the bank weathered the storm relatively well. So well, in fact, that in 2013 he was asked to govern the Bank of England, and accepted. Even if both sides of the pond thought it was a little bit strange, he navigated the UK through Brexit before returning to Canada. In 2025, he ran for the leadership of the Liberal Party, and the rest is history. On to the other leaders. Pierre Poilievre was born in Edmonton, Alberta, and from a young age became interested in politics. He graduated from the University of Calgary with a bachelor's degree in international relations. He began working for the Canadian Alliance Party in 2000, moving to Ottawa, being elected to Parliament in 2004. He held various parliamentary roles and eventually moved on to being Minister for Economic and Social Development and Minister for Democratic Reform after that. He ran for the leadership of the Conservative Party in 2022 and won in a landslide, focusing on issues such as the carbon tax and the cost of living. Ever since, he has been the face of the Conservative Party of Canada. Jagmeet Singh was born in Toronto, Ontario, and studied law at university. He got into politics in the 2011 election for Burmella Gore-Moulton. However, he narrowly lost it to a Conservative politician. He represented that riding later that year and won it in the Ontario provincial election for the Ontario NDP. In 2015, he became deputy leader of the Ontario NDP, serving under Andrea Horwath. In 2017, he ran for the leader of the federal NDP and won it, replacing Tom McClare. However, under Singh, the NDP lost 15 seats, going from 3rd to 4th in the 2019 federal election, remaining 4th in 2021. Singh became the first visible minority to run a major Canadian political party. Yves-François Blanchet is the leader of the Bloc Québécois, but I will only be calling him Blanchet because it is easier to say. All you really need to know about the Bloc Québécois is that they only run candidates in Quebec, and their whole aim is to make the province of Quebec a separate country. He was born in Drummondville, Quebec, and prior to entering politics, worked for the ADISQ, an organization promoting independent music in Quebec. He entered politics by serving in the Quebec National Assembly from 2008 to 2014. By the way, I always found calling the Parliament of Quebec the National Assembly kinda dumb because Quebec's not a country. He ran unopposed to take the leadership of the Bloc Québécois, a pro-independence political party. In 2019, he became the third largest party in the parliament, staying that way till this day. However, he is set to lose his 4th place to the NDP. Now, normally I would summarize what's happened since the election was called, but honestly, this election race has become pretty boring. I mean, after the excitement of the Liberal leadership race, the polls have remained relatively the same, with the Liberals widening their share slightly, the Conservatives still failing to get their security clearance and totally not being paid by India, and the NDP busy killing themselves. However, I can talk about the scandals. Immediately after the 51st state talks kicked off, the Conservatives made an honestly baffling move. They changed their slogan to Canada First, mirroring the slogan of the Trump campaign. This turned a lot of people off, but they're still using it, which is, honestly, doing something even though everyone's telling you not to, is kind of based. Both Carney and Poilievre want to raise military spending. However, Carney was recently criticized for saying the largest threat to Canada is China, which comes off as very out of touch. The NDP has also been criticized for interrupting during debates and having a pretty weak foreign policy, which, by the way, that whole debate was very, very boring and did not change anything when it came to the election. On April 19th, the Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre said that he wanted to use the notwithstanding clause to introduce harsher punishments for criminals, which is not how stopping crime works, by the way. But this whole thing meant that he would need to override the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, one of the most treasured things in the Canadian legal system that gives Canadians their rights. This drew sharp criticism and condemnation from all party leaders, and warnings from constitutional experts. Whatever those are. Thankfully for me, the election seems to be moving slow, and I expect the result to be relatively the same as the polls show now. But I hope this video was helpful in explaining what the election is about and why it's so important. We aren't talking about my opinions, but I might save that for another time. So, who will win? How far will the NDP fall off? And why is there still a marijuana party? That's a very good question.